Welcome back, everybody, to the What Worked For Me podcast. Today we have Jason, who has successfully lost 160 pounds. I'm really excited to dive into his story. Jason, is there anything else you'd like me to introduce you with today?
No, I'm good to go.
Awesome. So, Jason, to lose 160 pounds, you had to get pretty big at one point in your life. Did you start out as a bigger kid or did you gain weight later in life? What was your kind of weight history? What did that look like?
Um, so I was always a little bit of a bigger kid. I was on the heavier side in high school. I got in my young adulthood, I went to work for two theme parks, SeaWorld and Universal. And during that process, I was working like 12 hours a day and I got really thin then. But after I left the theme park world, I got into office work. And, once you go from a very active lifestyle, like moving and jumping around on a Jaws boat to sitting in a computer desk all day, you tend to start to put on weight.
Right. And so, how big did you get up to before you realized like, okay, I got to start making changes and this is probably dangerous health wise?
I got up to my peak was 361 pounds.
Okay, so you're a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
And did you have kind of an aha moment where you're like, okay, I have to make a change now, or do you just start with small changes? How did you start to lose
Yeah.
weight?
So a couple things kind of were a wake up call. One was, there was actually like three or four different things that really just kind of got my attention. The first one was right after COVID hit in 2020. I was doing some stuff around the house because that's all you could do, and I came down off a step ladder, changing a light in the house, and I overextended my knee and I tore my meniscus.
Oh,
And so that kind of hurt, and then that required some surgery. And so I had that done the following March, and then in April of that year, my wife and I, it was 2021. My wife and I, things were starting to open back up. We went to Vegas for the weekend, and I got a really bad gout flare up. And she was like, "Well, we should just rent a scooter." And at the time I was 44 years old, and I'm like, I'm not going to be the 44-year-old guy in a scooter, right?
right.
Um, and then that combined with the fact that I was eligible for the early COVID vaccine, and my A1C was borderline diabetic. All that stuff kind of coalesced right around the same time where I needed to do something. I knew I needed to do something.
Right. So kind of the universe starts telling you, right? You start seeing all the red flags, like you're getting injured easier, you're not as mobile, things kind of start having issues. What was your first step when you're like, okay, I got to lose some weight? What was the first thing you tried to do?
So my wife had some similar things. She was diagnosed as diabetic. She was hypertensive, so she started going to the weight loss clinic at St. Mark's, and they were putting her on a path towards surgery. For me, I didn't want surgery, and so like she got me to go to St. Mark's to meet with the nurse practitioner there, and she begged the nurse practitioner to convince me to do surgery, and I really didn't want to do surgery. Like, no offense, I mean, it's hard, and I respect. Mad props for anybody who goes that route. I really didn't want to go that route unless it was like an absolute last thing,
What was
and
the main
so
reason you were avoiding it?
um, just the idea of having to do like I'm going to be honest. Weight loss surgery is a harder route to me, in my opinion,
Yeah,
and for me, than losing it the just doing calories in calories out. Like the fact that if you drink soda, you're going to get sick. If you eat too much sweets, you're going to get sick. Like the idea of like dumping syndrome and all the stuff. So to me, like that's the hardcore route, right? And I
right.
don't have listen, I work in healthcare, and when I see people looking at like GLP, I mean, I would do, and I had this conversation at work with some people. I would do surgery before I did like a GLP-1 for me personally, but like to me, I wanted to give it one last college try to do it calories in calories out before
The
I would do
old-fashioned
something like
way.
that. Yeah.
Okay, and so you kind of went to a clinic, and did they? I assume they gave you some type of instructions, and that was the things you started.
Yep.
Go.
So gave me some guidelines around the calorie deficit I needed to hit. Gave me some. I mean, they were very broad, right? So she put me on a 1,800 calorie a day diet. That's started doing tracking with food trackers, and then wanted to see some activity. Um, and then she also, like I said, she prescribed two medications. One was a stimulant, and the other was this. It's a kind of a unique drug in that it's there to help with migraines, but it destroys the reward you get from drinking soda.
Yeah, we talked about this briefly beforehand. Let's take
Yeah.
like dive into it because I thought it was kind of interesting. So before this, were you a big soda drinker? Was that one of your
Yes.
that was one of your big vices?
Yeah, I mean, like growing up, my mom was a big Pepsi drinker. So she always had these like, if you think about it in the '80s, those big thermos cups you'd get from a
Yep, I know
from a
exactly what you're
that has
talking
like the
about.
handle,
Yeah,
so she would have this big, huge 32 ounce like cup of Pepsi every day, all day. And if I was thirsty, you would just go drink that. Like that was like her. It's how we got mono spread through my house when I was a kid and stuff like that. Because it was like, and so like growing up, it was I there was no pressure to drink soda. It was our water. It was always drink soda, soda, soda. So it's how I grew up. And so I got married. My wife wasn't much of a soda drinker, but I worked at a health tech company where we have a big, huge stock cooler of like sodas, sugary drinks, stuff. So that's where I would get my fix during the day, even when we wouldn't have it in the house.
yeah. So growing up, kind of the habit started, and then
Mhm.
what was your experience with the medication? Did it just stop it pretty quick? What was it like?
I think within like a day or two of taking it, like it doesn't like if you read online, if you go and you do like put in the drug name and do like side effects soda, right? You'll see a ton of stories about it. And the way I would describe it is that like it just makes doesn't make soda fun. Like it makes soda boring. Like that's like it tastes the same. You still feel the bubbles, but it just like when you drink it, like before I would drink soda, I'd get the dopamine hit. I would get like, you know, endorphins rushing through me. Now it's like that was gone.
Right. And so that when it kind of took the pleasure out of it, then you just stopped drinking, which I'm sure eliminated a ton of calories
Yep.
right out of the gate. And so as you started, you said you were started up at about 360. Going down to 1800 calories is a pretty severe deficit. Did you have any negative side effects when that first started? How was that getting used to 1800 calories after, I assume, much higher?
I mean, it was a struggle at first. I think the biggest thing was I found some routines, right? So every morning, and I still eat today. Is there's a Jimmy Dean Delight turkey breakfast sandwich. There's a turkey sausage, egg white, cheese on a whole like it's frozen.
Yep.
I That's what I eat every morning for breakfast. Like that's like 270 calories. For lunch every day I'd eat Jimmy John's, so I'd have Jimmy John's delivered to my office. It was the same thing. It was a turkey sandwich, no cheese, no mayo, with Jimmy mustard and peppers, and I mean, so like it was a half. So I mean, it was a lot about develop, and it wasn't instant. It was just a lot of like just changing. I would discover something like, hey, I can do this Jimmy John sandwich. Like it's good. It fills me up. There's enough food here to fill me to make me through the next meal. Dinners we started doing a meal service because like the biggest challenge is when you get to dinner time, like you could be as you can I could always make it through the day, right? I could
Right.
always make because I was busy, I wasn't bored. But I would get to dinner if I didn't have dinner planned, if I didn't have anything else going on, that's when I would say, okay, so let's just order a pizza, or let's go order a Chinese, or let's go,
Just
you know,
convenient and something
yeah. So
else.
we started doing one of those meal prep where they send you the box like food that was already kind of portioned out and stuff like that. So we started doing that, and that gave me variety at night. It gave me plans. So we had to eat it, otherwise it would go bad. So it kind of forced us to do. And then we were doing this for a few months, and then my wife started to need to. So I started this in June. So July, August, September, October. We got to um, like September, October. My wife was starting to prep for her surgery, so her diet had to change drastically as well.
Okay. So before we dive into that anymore, you brought up something, you kind of said you kind of find your habits was one of the things you were alluding to. What was something that helped you find and establish those habits?
A lot of it was like going to the clinic, hearing um, the nurse practitioner give me a new tip, I'd start to apply it, and then seeing that either continue or accelerate the progress I was seeing, right? I mean, the first month was really hard. June to July of 21, I've lost maybe a pound, right? That was really hard. That was really hard to go in and see, like, I did all this work and I've only lost a pound. That sucks,
How do
right?
you handle that psychologically? Realizing like I got to do this 100 more times or even 160 more times where you were at then.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. Like it was definitely like discouraging. It was definitely like going in and being like what the heck? Like I mean, because I knew I did. Yeah, I probably could have done better, right? Like I could have walked more. I mean, again, keeping in mind at this point, I wasn't doing any sort of fitness, any sort of, and I had bought a bike in May, right? So when we started this, I bought a bike saying, "Hey, I'm going to start to do this stuff," but I hadn't yet. And she's like, "Well, start to ride your bike." I'm like, "But riding my bike sucks. It's Utah. There are hills."
Right? There's nowhere flat.
Um, and she's like, "Well, have you considered an e-bike, right?" Like, and so so then, but she would over time she would make recommendations, and I would just start to apply them, and then over the months as I would go, and even daily. I mean, I weighed every day. Like I would weigh every single day, and so that was really hard too. Um, but it would be immediate feedback to the work I was doing, and so as I would apply new habits or apply new strategies, I would see within a few days whether that strategy was working or not, right? And then if it worked, that gave it me the reinforcement to continue that new habit or that new change.
That makes sense. So just you test it kind of if good things came, you just double down on
Yep.
it. So you said the first month you only lost a pound. After that, did it start coming off more quickly? How
Yeah, I mean, I would say the first month I was adherent probably 90% of the time. I snuck a few Arby's heroes in here and there and stuff like through that first month, and like, but not anything that critically threw off my calories for the day. But I think, when we got to when I got to August, I think the weight loss difference between from June to July was like 1 pound. July to August was about 10 pounds, right? And so my adherence was a lot stricter in July. My, you know, I'd actually had my bike converted into an e-bike, so I started riding that a lot more. And so by the time I went and saw her in August, I was down 10 pounds, and so that felt a lot better when you saw that kind of weight loss.
right? And then you say, okay, this is something that's actually doable,
Yep.
and you start kind of getting that idea of it. So how long did it take you to lose the whole 160 pounds?
It was about 18 months. So I basically got to January of 23 and I was at about 1 or 200, somewhere between like 195 and 205.
Okay. And so during this time, did you hit any like weight plateaus, or once you figured out that first month, was it just pretty straight after then?
So when I got to about 250, so as I started getting lean thinner and started feeling better, I got to a point where I'm like, I don't want to be skinny fat, right? So
Right.
I actually went and, like, you have the influencers on there was a guy who was advertising his services, and I did a personal trainer for 3 months, and he cut me back to he upped my protein, right? So at this point he was starting to dial in the nutrition a little bit more than what I had before. I got my
A little bit more
protein up.
macros instead of
Yep.
just calories. Yep.
Yep. So focused on my protein intake, and started doing some training concepts. So I did that, right? The first month, my weight stalled, right? Like I went from losing, 5 to 10 pounds a month to where I went like flat. And so I'm like, what's going on? He's like, so are you like, so we went through everything. He couldn't figure it out. But I'm like, what I'm not doing is I'm not drinking enough water. Right. But after a month of stalling, it was really frustrating. So I started drinking like a gallon and a half of water a day.
And that was the thing that kind of
And
sped
then that
up.
sped it up and I started dropping again.
During that month, how do you keep going when you don't see? Because you just talked about how like your habits form by you would do something, you'd see a positive result, so
Yeah.
you'd keep doing it. When all of a sudden things stop working, how do you keep going and not get frustrated?
I would go back and look at pictures of me before versus pictures of me at that point. I mean, because again, at this point, I'd already lost 110 pounds, right? So when I hit this stall, I went from wearing size 48 jeans to wearing size 40 jeans, right? So like I knew it worked. I just knew that I knew that what I was doing was making me better. I just needed to find the thing that was stalling where I was at, right? In this case, I wasn't properly hydrated. My body was retaining too much water. It was fighting to keep my kidneys functioning right, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So
So you brought up exercise. At the very beginning, you said you were just maybe walking a little bit or biking.
yep.
How did your exercise progress during this time period?
Yeah, so I started the 10,000 steps thing was what my um was what my nurse practitioner wanted me to hit. I started that pretty early. There's a track out by my work I would walk and stuff like that. But I did get an e-bike. I really enjoy just being free and just going out and doing stuff. So I got an e-bike and I live, where I live, near a really kind of cool trail but it's really kind of hilly. And a lot of people were like, you're not losing a lot of weight. You're not doing a lot of calories doing e-bike. I'm like, actually, you kind of are, right? And what people don't realize is that even though you're not getting the full muscular workout, your legs are still moving. You're still holding yourself up vertical. You're still having to do balance. There's a lot of other ancillary muscles that are getting a workout, even though you're not pushing your legs as hard. You
And
know,
it's exponentially more than just sitting there.
right. I mean, my
Like,
heart rate my
yeah,
heart rate was still getting in the 130s, right? So it was still
yeah,
doing a good cardio workout. Could have been better if I wasn't, maybe, but then maybe it'd be more of an anaerobic workout versus an aerobic workout, right? So, but I did that, and then I got to February of 22. That's when I was like, I don't want to be skinny fat. I want to start putting on muscle. I don't want to be, and that's when I worked with a trainer. I came out of that 3 months, not really when I started the engagement, I was like, I'd like to know what I'm doing, right? I just don't tell me what to do. Tell me why what I'm doing is going to change my life. And I got done with that 3 months, and I had a nice little workout, and I had a nice macro plan, but I didn't come out of that 3 months with any better understanding.
yeah.
So that's when I'm like, I need to take things in my own hands, and I went and learned a lot more about exercise, science and fitness science, both from an exercise perspective and a dietary nutrition perspective, and I've applied that. And so now I'm at now I bike probably 2 or 3 times a week, either on my Peloton, because I did get a Peloton, or my e-bike. I'm running 3.5 miles 2 or 3 times a week, and then I do strength and conditioning training 2 or 3 times a week. I'm trying to be an all-around balance, have an all-around balance. So I'm not trying to be huge. I mean, if I could get more ripped, if I get a little bit more cut, that'd be
Who
fine.
doesn't want
But
to be more ripped, right?
yeah, but I'm trying to be I'm trying to not neglect, I'm not just focusing on strength or muscular. I'm trying to focus on cardiovascular health and having fun activity to do it, right? So I'm going to go do here. It's called the Frontliner or the Front Runner Century in May. I'm going to go do it's a
100 mile bike
100K
race.
100K bike ride. So
Oh,
it's a metric
yeah,
century. I'm looking at maybe going to do a 5K in Denver here in a couple weeks. So just trying to find ways to apply fitness that are fun.
right. I really like that, but you said something just a second ago that I want to dive into before we think about this next thing is you said you kind of got criticism when you were doing the e-bike.
Mhm.
And I feel like when it comes to exercise and nutrition, like everyone thinks they're an expert.
Yep.
So yeah, the smile immediately, right? So I'm sure how how did you handle criticism? I'm sure just like the endless onslaught of people saying, "Hey, like why don't you do this or why don't you do this?" and
Well,
getting lost just following whatever.
I fortunately had I had that person I would see every month at the clinic, right? And this was a professional, someone I trusted, and I think that I think you need that. You need to have someone, right, that that you that you see as an authority, right? Someone who isn't necessarily sold on one way, right? So in this case, my nurse practitioner, she walked people through losing it, calories in, calories out. She used GLP-1s to help people lose weight. She guided people through the surgical process, right? And she understood that like people are going to have their own paths, and people
Right.
are going to have the things that work for them, and they're going to have, and there's various reasons, right? So I think it's really important to find somebody who you can work with and who's going to work with you to help you understand, like, and follow those things that are going to work for you as the individual, versus like what is the latest fad, right? Is it she wasn't trying to convince me to do intermittent fasting. She wasn't trying to convince me to do keto. She wasn't trying to convince me to do, like, she was trying to say her focus, and she wasn't, one of the things she said was, I don't like keto, but if keto works for you, then I'm going to help you do keto.
Right. Yeah.
And you need someone like that, I think, who will cheer you on and help you and be your sounding board, but also has the experience to back up and coach you through it.
Kind
If
of
that
keep
makes
you
sense.
grounded as all
Yep.
the craziness goes on around you.
Yep.
Thank you. I really like how you answered that. So you just said something that shows a little bit of a change during this journey. At the beginning, you were like, I hate exercise and I hate biking. And now you're like, now I want to go do a 100-kilometer bike race for fun.
Yep.
Take me through that change. How do you progress from I don't like exercising to now I want to do this great race that's really hard and it's fun?
It's retraining your brain, right? There was a point when I would feel accomplishment from eating a large Papa John's pizza, or putting away, like when you think about like your brain and your brain chemistry, right? When you complete or accomplish certain things, you get endorphins, you get dopamine, so I would get those endorphins when I would eat 30 chicken wings, right? Um, I wouldn't feel that when I was running. I wouldn't feel that when I was
Right.
biking, right? Over time, right, as you retrain your brain chemistry, right, around certain things, like, you feel accomplishment around completing them, right? Like, meaning, like, over time, right, riding a 20-mile bike ride is an accomplishment, and I'm like, yes, I did that. That's awesome. I'm excited. That's what I want to do, right? Like, and your body's like, yeah, that's awesome, right? And then even to a point to where, even if you're like feeling like, I had a major project at work this past year, and really starting to run, and I'm at this progression where now I'm running. I'm trying to maybe get ready to do a 5K. I mean, it's new to me. Like, I hadn't done that before, but now that I'm running at a 30, and it's nothing major. It's like 4 miles an hour for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But the first time I did that, I was really struggling with my mental health at work, just because of stress, and like the projects were overdue, and like I wasn't. But even like doing that at the gym that night just made me feel so much better about my life. Like, I am like, the first time I hit that 30 minutes at 4 miles an hour, like, jog constant, without stopping, without slowing down, the resulting, like, the chemical release of like the endorphins, of like saying, like, the reward center of your brain saying you did it, yes, felt amazing. And I mean, and I'm like, what, if I do that, thinking about my life and never wanting to run, I can apply that to my issues at work and now tackle, yeah, it sucks. It's hard. I don't like it when I'm in the middle of it, right? Like, you know, but coming out the other side, I know I can do it.
I really like that. What you brought up that it's helped a lot in work. Do you think it was the confidence that it gave you or just handling the stress? What were the biggest takeaways that your weight loss journey really taught you to be able to take on more
Yeah.
stressful situations?
So I think one, like, the more active you are, the more nervous, and especially like if you're, like, I say I have high, I'm a high performing, but um imposter syndrome, right? So I deal with that a lot at work, right? So the ability to deal with all that nervous energy that builds up throughout the day is huge, right? So the actual physical activity helps as an outlet for that. But knowing that I can do something that I never thought I'd be able to do, running for 30 minutes straight, right, without stop, right? And when I started, I was running choruses of songs, and I'd get done, I'd be like, and this was after I'd taken on biking and have done some bike rides, but running was just a different beast. But hitting that and being able to do that is confidence building, right? It's like if I can do that, like, if over the course of a 12-week period, I can go from not being able to run, through the chorus of Higher by Creed, to now I can do 30 minutes and finish up on that song. That's a pretty big deal.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. It's awesome to see that you'll progress that way. Um, what other changes outside of, just the weight did you notice as this came off? Did you see all of the other health kind of risks and things that you had go away, like the gout and
Yep. Yep. So I haven't had a gout flare up. And even though I'm still eating a really high, I'm probably eating more protein now, but I'm not getting that uric acid buildup in my feet. Um, my A1C went down to normal. My blood pressure, I was borderline hypertensive. It's now in a really healthy normal range, right? Not
yeah,
not just high normal, but like actually, in a lot of ways, sometimes it gets low normal. So sometimes I get hypotensive, right?
yeah.
So, or I stand up too fast and I'm like, ooh, a little dizzy. Um, and my cholesterol is right where it needs to be. And again, I work in healthcare, so I work for a company that promotes the use of primary care. So every year I get $1,500 for going to go see So I go every year, and I've seen the progression of my stats come down, and get really good where they need to be. So
That's great. You brought up something that you said you went from being like happy about being able to eat 30 wings to being happy to be able to run for 30 minutes. It sounds like there was an identity change. I know sometimes when people are losing weight, they have a hard time letting go of being like the big guy or, just struggling with that identity. Did you have to go through a change of identity during this process?
yeah, I mean, there definitely is like the way people saw me and the way I saw myself. Well, let me take that back. I never saw myself as fat, right? Like I could look at pictures. Like when I looked at pictures, I saw myself as fat. When I looked in the mirror, I look the same to me now when I look in the mirror that I did then, right? But like when I would see a picture of me, I would be like, "Dang, I'm fat," right? Um, so but there was definitely like people. You definitely see how people pay attention, or the attention people give you is different, right?
Right.
Um, and so I have a lot of empathy for people who are high in weight, and like I totally understand why you know body positivity is a thing, but at the same time, like as I progressed, I'm like I feel way better now about you know I have a lot more confidence. Um, I have a lot more energy, right? So yeah, I mean, I went from being the donut guy to being the fitness guy,
That's cool.
and I mean, I think like I miss my Krispy Kremes, but you know,
Not enough though, right?
not enough.
Not enough to go back.
Yep.
So during this whole process, what do you think were some of your biggest mistakes that you just had to learn the hard way?
Spent $700 on an online influencer trainer. That was a pretty big one.
Didn't go well for you?
No, I mean, like I said, I mean, like, I by the end I was doing a push up, which I can't knock, right? Like, I mean, like, but at the same time, like, I wanted, at that price, I would have expected a little bit more head knowledge. I would like to have come out with that little bit more head knowledge. And I think the other thing too is, um, I wish you ever play that game where you wish you could wake up and you were 16. If my biggest regret is that I didn't do this a lot sooner. I wasted so many years of my life not, if I had started this sooner, if I'd done this when I was younger, my life would be a lot. I'd probably enjoy things like one of the things I did after I lost a lot of weight is I went snowboarding and I fell and I hurt myself pretty bad. I jacked up my shoulder pretty bad, and that put me out of working out for a
Yeah.
while. And so because I was always bigger and not athletic younger, I never got into doing things like that. And whereas like if I had done that when I was younger, I'd probably be a lot more equipped to do it now.
Yeah. Just kind of starting out at an earlier age, getting healthier
Yep.
earlier.
Yep.
And so, have you said you got all the way down you got down to like 200 pounds, right? That was where you got
Yep.
down to. Since then, have you struggled with any regain?
I mean, I'm up to about 215 now, but I also think that I've also put on a lot of muscle. Like, so
Yeah.
I've tried to like, I've done a lot of body comp focus. So, um, but yeah, I mean, it definitely is front of mind. I still weigh myself every single day. Um, I still like, when I see the weight go up, I definitely say, okay, time for me to cut a little bit, and I, get back on my fitness pal and get down to back to about 210. Like, if I'm in the 210, 215, that's really kind of where I'd be good, where I'm good to go. Um, and I feel comfortable. I think the challenge though is like, again, making sure that like don't get hit by that body dysmorphia. That's the hard part, is like when
Right.
you look in the mirror and you're like, you get on the scale and it's like my focus is like, the scale is feedback to what I've done recently, but then are my clothes still fitting the same? Are my shirts still, are my pants still fitting the same? And then when that happens, then I'm like, then I need to maybe focus on my nutrition a little bit more than I had in the past. But I still eat pretty healthy. I still try to eat between 2,500. I don't eat way more than 2,500 calories a day. I really do try to stay pretty tight. I think the things that like I let slip are like I don't get enough water in
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
You brought body dysmorphia.
Mhm.
What was your experience with just your perception of self as you go through this transformation and navigating those pitfalls?
Yeah. So when you're older, right, your body becomes less elastic, right? I mean, like I said, when I was a bigger kid, when I worked at Universal and I got really lean, my skin got really back tight, right?
Yep.
When I lost this weight, my skin didn't go back to being tight, right? Like, so like it was really hard because in the mirror, you know what you know that like I'm not obese, but when you look in the mirror, you have excess skin. It's like, that's really hard. And so one of the things that I had to do is I actually went to Mexico and um, had a lower body lift, because it was, for me, it's something I needed to do so I didn't get caught up in my head that like I'm still fat.
Yeah. What was your experience with that?
It was pretty good. I mean, again, as with any major surgery, do your research. Um, take your time, find the right doctor, right? For us, because I lost a lot of weight, my wife lost a lot of weight. We both wanted to do this. So it was the more economical option. I was able to pay about 10 grand to have mine done.
Yeah, that's really
Um,
inexpensive for
yeah,
I've known people who've done it locally here in Utah and it's 35, $40,000. So
yeah. And it was like, and we followed the doctor for about a year before we started following doctors when we started our weight loss journey. Like,
okay. You kind of
and
had in the back of your mind maybe this is gonna
yep,
be a thing.
yep, following him. And you know, the biggest thing to make sure that you do is you're finding someone that has good results, and you can verify, you have verifiable stories, right? Like, and then understanding that like complications happen with any surgery, right? So as long as you're going to a good reputable physician, regardless of whether they're in the States or not, right? Like I've heard horror stories about guys here in Utah doing like stuff down in out of their garage, right? Like, so
Yeah.
you can get hit with horror stories anywhere. But you want to make sure you have a board certified doctor. The facilities are doing it. Like, most of the places that you're going to go to, we went to Tijuana. They're not like full blown, like they're not going to be full blown like St. Mark's Hospital, right? They're
Yeah.
going to be overnight surgical state suites. Um, you know, and then making sure you have the right recovery path. Like and talking to people who've had surgery done here, you have your surgery, you go home that day, right? Me, I was in the hospital overnight. We went to a recovery hospital for 5 days before I came home, right? So I had the attention that the doctor, I daily follow ups by the doctor and stuff like that. And so in a lot of ways, I think it's almost better care than I would have gotten here.
How was the flight home after 5 days of that surgery? I can imagine that was not comfortable.
Yeah, so we flew into San Diego. So it was just me. So I went by myself because I did not want to sit in a hotel room with my wife for 5 days, because I knew that I was going to be miserable. I knew that having someone
Right.
else there, like just living, was going to make me so. I actually went by myself. I went with my wife when she had hers done later. And I was right. Like she was miserable, and having me there probably didn't help her at all, really. But I the flight home was a little hard, just because like at this point you're mobile, right? Like the first day or so you're in bed, and especially for men heal a lot different than women do. And so like I was actually only supposed to stay 3 days, but the morning I was supposed to leave, and it was like it was Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I was I was the nurse came, the doctor came, I was all ready to leave. I got up and I was moving around probably maybe more than I should have, and I threw a blood clot in one of my drains.
Oh no.
And then so my drain, which was like almost like a yellowish fluid, filled up like within an hour of blood.
So then they made you stay.
So they had me stay a couple of extra days. So I'm actually thankful for that, because I probably felt better the flight. I booked. I mean, since it was from San Diego, like it was a first class flight. I had a lot of points on Delta because I travel for work. So like I was able to have a very comfortable flight. I think the biggest thing is just getting through security, and then like I got to the airport really early, because they want to make sure they get you over the border. They want to make sure you get
Right.
to your flight quick. So I had to like get myself to the person that the valet left me to go do other things. So I had to go to the bathroom by myself and stuff. But overall, it was fine. Just
Wasn't too bad.
yeah.
And what was the before and after the surgery significantly better? Like, did it help with the body image and
Yes, it really did. Right. Like it was hard because like I had developed this active lifestyle, this workout lifestyle, right? And now I was out of commission for about 12 weeks. You really can't do a whole lot. You don't want to do a whole lot, right? Um, and so feeling like I wasn't doing anything, but like now, like looking at my scars and stuff, I could go to the beach and take my shirt off and feel, and
feel confident?
feel confident, feel like better than half the dads out there. So
That's great. Good for you, man. I'm glad glad it was a positive experience.
yeah.
So you kind of brought up the fact that once you start being kind of a fitness person, it's hard to take it easy, right?
Mhm.
And something that can happen, sometimes I almost feel there's like a transfer addiction where people go from being obese and loving food to maybe going a little bit too much into fitness and the body dysmorphia and those type of things. What did you do to make sure you adopted healthy changes, but then not turn them back into another vice?
Yeah, maybe I did do that. I don't know. I mean, no, I mean, like, I think I, I stay fairly busy with work, right? So like I definitely am somebody that people say you should take a rest day, right? Like, you know, um, but I mean, I think that like as long as what I'm doing, as long as I try to stay balanced, right? So I'm not like obsessing about one form of fitness, right? As long as I try to take a balanced approach, right? Am I getting 20 minutes of cardio in a day, right? Am I, whether that's running or biking, am I getting, you know, yeah, I mean, I'm busy a lot of other ways, so I couldn't maybe get into like spending 3 hours at the gym like some people
Makes
can.
sense. And I guess I mean that's probably the best answer, right? It's just having a more complete life and making sure that you have
Yeah.
balance. So, man, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we wrap up, or
I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, I would say, is just as this is all about lifestyle, right? You talk about like there's a lot of different ways to lose weight. There's lots of different things you can do. I think the biggest thing for me was finding finding ways to sustainably change my life, my lifestyle, right? Um, you know, Finding ways that like when you're done, when you get to whatever your goal is, for me, whatever that goal was, it was making sure that the things that I had done and the habits that I developed would stick with me for the rest of my life.
yeah?
Right. And I knew as long as I did that, when I got to the end of it, it would stick.
How did you navigate? I think that's the hardest thing for everybody.
Mhm.
What was the what was your process of elimination for things that you were like, this isn't going to work long term versus this will work long term?
I just dropped them. Right. Like meaning like if it was something I knew like I couldn't do, right? Like I knew that I couldn't do. I had some friends trying to get me to do like, what is it, CrossFit. No offense, CrossFit,
Yeah.
not my thing, right? I knew I would never that would never be successful for me, right? Because my wife is really big. She likes to do like burn boot camp, and like she was big into Camp Gladiator.
Classes and
That's not me. I went to a few. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do this every day. I'm not going to do this every week. I hate this. I need something that's, And so when I realized it was something that was not me, I just would I would drop it as quick as I could and try to find an alternative that I knew was sustainable. Like I didn't want to waste time doing something that I didn't want to do.
so yours was just, getting rid of it immediately if you knew it
Yep.
wasn't a solution.
Yep.
How long did you usually try things for before you thought that it was like, nah, this is a no-go?
A week or so. Like if I hated it, if I hated something or I really didn't like something after about a week, like I wasn't going to learn to love it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Like I said, like when I started running, I started like I came up with a playlist. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to run the chorus of the songs.
Yeah.
Right. If I could just, and I got through that and I got through like the play, and I would walk the rest of the way. So I would do like, Thunderstruck and I would walk the chorus or I'd run the chorus and I'd walk the rest of the song. And then I did like, then someone's like, you should try Couch to 5K or something like that, like a Couch to 5K program. I'm like, okay, I'll try that. Right. And then after a week of running a minute and a half and walking a minute, I didn't hate that. So I'm like, okay, next week I'll run 2 minutes and walk 2 minutes. Right. And as long as I didn't hate it, I kept doing it.
Makes sense. And then you just kept doing the things that you actually enjoyed and then
Yep.
kept going. Okay, I think I have one last question then. Sometimes during these big changes, there's just things that you don't enjoy, right? How do you balance dropping things when you don't enjoy them because you know they're not going to work long term and forcing yourself kind of through those low spots of, just the parts of the journey that just aren't fun?
Having the right having the right metrics to reinforce the things that you're doing was really key, right? Meaning, and the metrics aren't necessarily the scale. It can be the scale, right? It could be it could be going from a 3XL to a 2XL, right? It could be going from a 48 pair of jeans to a 46. As long as you have the right metrics in front of you and you're able to see that progress, right? And in a lot of ways, I think the non-scale victories are far more important than the scale victories,
Right, I agree.
right? And finding those ways to say like, no, this is, and the annual physical with the doctor, right? Going from you are your cholesterol sucks and we're gonna have to put you on a statin to, hey, your cholesterol borderline sucks, and if you don't continue to this progress, you're gonna have to go on a statin later on, right?
Yeah,
Like those are the things that keep you motivated, even when you're stuck with the things that you don't like.
that makes sense. I really like that. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. I think we'll just kind of wrap it up there if you don't have anything else. And thank you again. That was awesome. I love the things that you said today, and I hope the listeners enjoyed it.
Thank you. And if always hoping that what I've done it can inspire other people to change their life.
Yeah, I really think it will. I think I'm really grateful you shared your story, and hopefully it'll help someone out there. So
All
let's
right.
just end it there.